The invitation felt like a slap. Gold lettering on thick cardstock addressed to my parents celebrating 30 years of marriage, 30 years of a carefully constructed facade. And beneath the shimmering script, the crushing blow, limited seating, immediate family only. Genesis, that was me. Their daughter. Apparently not immediate enough. My own parents barring me from celebrating their milestone. The crimson was still clinging to the shattered frame of my favorite photograph, the one from our last family vacation, smiles plastered on faces that hid 1,000 unspoken resentments. When the cold reality set in, I was being erased. If you've ever felt betrayed by the people who should love you most, subscribe now and join a community that understands family can be thicker than crimson, but sometimes it's just toxic. My name is Genesis, and until that moment, I'd played my part. The dutiful daughter, the peacemaker, the one who always swallowed her own needs to keep the delicate balance of our family from collapsing. I smoothed down the non-existent wrinkles on my dress, the one I'd already picked out for the party. A soft floral print, optimistic and utterly inappropriate for the storm gathering inside me. My phone buzzed. It was my sister, Bethany. A picture message. The photo loaded slowly, each pixel burning itself onto my retinas. There they were, my parents, beaming in front of a professionally decorated backdrop, the very backdrop I'd envisioned myself standing in front of. And then I saw him. Uncle David, not immediate family by any stretch of the imagination, his arm draped casually around my mother's shoulder. He caught my eye, or so it felt, and winked. My breath hitched. The excuses started swirling. Limited seating, a blatant lie. Immediate family only, a cruel joke. They had deliberately excluded me, replaced me with someone else, someone who apparently fit their carefully curated image better than I did. It wasn't just about missing a party. It was about the message, loud and clear. I didn't belong. I wasn't wanted. I was expendable. My fingers tightened around my phone, the screen cracking slightly under the pressure. I told myself to breathe, to stay calm. To remember all those times I'd let their casual cruelty slide, all those instances I'd rationalized their dismissive behavior. I took a long, slow breath. The air tasted like ash. I wouldn't confront them, not yet. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me upset. I would simply observe. And remember, the next morning a package arrived. A thick envelope, official-looking, addressed to me. Inside, a letter from the bank. Routine paperwork, they called it. A request for clarification regarding a mortgage application. A mortgage application in my name, for a sum that made my stomach drop. I reread the letter, each word a hammer blow to my already fragile composure. My parents hadn't just excluded me from their celebration, they had implicated me in something far more sinister. They had used my identity, my credit, to secure a loan without my knowledge or consent. My vision blurred. The room started to spin. The person I trusted most was one of them. The ground seemed to disappear from beneath my feet. I sank into the nearest chair, the bank letter clutched in my trembling hands. Fraud, that was the only word that echoed in my mind. They had committed fraud and they had used me as their pawn. The weight of their betrayal was crushing, suffocating. I tried to call them, my fingers fumbling with the phone. No answer. Of course, no answer. They were probably still basking in the afterglow of their party, oblivious to the chaos they had unleashed in my life. I left a message, my voice trembling despite my best efforts. We need to talk, it's about the bank letter, call me. I knew deep down that they wouldn't. Sleepless nights became my new reality. Every creak of the house, every shadow in the corner of my room seemed to whisper accusations. I tossed and turned, replaying every interaction with my parents, searching for clues, for any indication that they were capable of such deceit. The smiling faces in the photographs mocked me, a constant reminder of the carefully constructed lie my family had been built upon. The bank called again. This time the voice on the other end was less polite, more insistent. They needed answers. They needed documentation. They needed to know if I had authorized the mortgage application. I stammered, trying to explain that I had no knowledge of it, that my signature must have been forged. The woman on the phone sighed, a sound that conveyed skepticism and impatience. We'll need you to file a police report, Miss Genesis, and we'll need to see it within 5 business days. A police report. The thought sent a fresh wave of panic through me. Filing a report meant involving the authorities, exposing my parents, turning my family's dirty laundry inside out for the world to see. But what choice did I have? They had left me with no other option. I drove to the police station, the knot in my stomach tightening with each mile. The sterile environment of the station, the cold fluorescent lights, amplified my anxiety. I sat across from a weary-looking officer, recounting the events of the past few days, my voice barely above a whisper. He listened patiently, his expression unreadable as I laid bare the details of my parents' betrayal. When I finished, he simply nodded. We'll look into it, Miss Genesis. But I have to be honest, these kinds of cases can be difficult, especially when it involves family. Difficult, that was an understatement. As the days turned into weeks, the pressure mounted. The bank was relentless, demanding payment on a loan I hadn't taken out. My credit score plummeted. I received threatening letters from collection agencies. My attempts to reason with my parents were met with silence or outright denial. They claimed it was all a misunderstanding, a clerical error. But I saw the flicker of guilt in their eyes, the way they avoided my gaze. The charade was crumbling, but they refused to admit their culpability. My sister Bethany became my reluctant confidant. I showed her the bank letters, the police report, the mounting evidence of our parents' deception. At first, she refused to believe it. There has to be some mistake, Genesis. You know how mom and dad are. They would never do something like this. But as I presented her with the undeniable facts, her skepticism began to waver. She agreed to talk to our parents to try to get them to come clean. The conversation did not go well. According to Bethany, they became defensive, accusing me of trying to ruin their lives. They painted themselves as the victims, claiming I was jealous of their success, that I was trying to extort money from them. Bethany, torn between loyalty to her parents and the undeniable truth, retreated into silence. I was on my own. I felt utterly isolated, adrift in a sea of deceit and betrayal. The injustice of it all burned within me, a slow, simmering rage that threatened to consume me. They had not only stolen my money, they had stolen my peace of mind, my sense of security, my faith in the very concept of family. But they had underestimated my resolve. They thought I would crumble under the pressure, that I would simply disappear, allowing them to continue their charade. They were wrong, very wrong. The day they tried to bury me was the day I started digging my way out. The walls of my apartment seemed to be closing in. Every object, every piece of furniture was a testament to my failure. The unpaid bills stacked on the counter like accusing fingers. The eviction notice taped to my door felt like a brand, searing itself into my skin. I lost my job. The stress of the situation, the constant calls from the bank, the sleepless nights spent poring over legal documents, had taken their toll. My performance suffered, and my boss, a man who valued order and efficiency above all else, had no patience for my personal problems. I understood. I was a liability, another casualty in my parents' relentless pursuit of their warped version of happiness. The irony wasn't lost on me. They were celebrating 30 years of marriage while systematically destroying my life. I stared at my reflection in the cracked mirror. Hollow eyes stared back, framed by dark circles. My hair was dull, lifeless. I looked like a ghost of my former self. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. Was this it? Was this how my story ended? Broke, jobless, and betrayed by the very people who were supposed to protect me. The thought was a heavy weight pressing down on my chest, stealing the air from my lungs. I stumbled into the bathroom, the cold tile a stark contrast to the burning anger that coursed through my veins. I turned on the faucet, letting the water run until it steamed. I splashed it on my face, trying to wash away the grime, the despair, but it clung to me like a second skin. My hand drifted to the medicine cabinet. Inside, a collection of pills, painkillers, sleeping aids, remnants of a life I no longer recognized. I stared at them, each one a tiny, tempting escape from the crushing weight of reality. The darkness whispered, promising oblivion, a release from the pain. It would be so easy, so simple, just a few pills and it would all be over. No more bills, no more betrayal, no more disappointment. The hand holding the bottle trembled. I closed my eyes, picturing my parents, their smug faces, their carefully constructed lies. And then I saw Bethany, her face etched with worry, her voice filled with a hesitant hope that things could somehow get better. No, I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I wouldn't let their actions define me. I wouldn't let the darkness win. I slammed the medicine cabinet shut, the sound echoing in the small bathroom. My breath came in ragged gasps. My body trembled, but a flicker of defiance ignited within me. It was a small spark, barely visible in the overwhelming darkness, but it was there. A refusal to surrender. A determination to fight back. I would not be a victim. I would not let them break me. I would make them pay. Every tear I had shed, every sleepless night I had endured, every ounce of pain they had inflicted upon me would be returned tenfold. The switch flipped. Something inside me hardened, solidified. The anger that had been consuming me transformed into a cold, calculating resolve. I was done feeling sorry for myself. I was done waiting for someone to rescue me. I would rescue myself. I would become their worst nightmare. I started small. I meticulously documented everything. Every phone call, every email, every letter from the bank, every interaction with my parents. I became a relentless researcher, devouring legal documents, scouring the internet for information on fraud, identity theft, and financial crimes. I learned their patterns, their habits, their weaknesses. I discovered that the mortgage wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the tip of the iceberg. They had been siphoning money from my accounts for years, using my social security number to open credit cards, taking out loans in my name, all while maintaining the facade of loving, supportive parents. The extent of their deception was staggering, breathtaking in its audacity, but with each new discovery, my resolve grew stronger. I was no longer just trying to clear my name, I was fighting for my survival. I was fighting to reclaim my life. I knew I couldn't go to the police. Not yet, they would protect themselves. The justice system often failed families, especially when money was involved. I needed leverage. I needed proof that was undeniable. And I knew exactly where to find it. Their weakness wasn't the law, it was their reputation. Their biggest weakness, they thought they were untouchable. I became a ghost in my own life, smiling at my parents like nothing was wrong, agreeing to family dinners, even offering to help with their finances, all while secretly documenting every transaction, every lie, every carefully concealed asset. I installed hidden cameras in their house, innocuous-looking devices disguised as smoke detectors and air fresheners, capturing their conversations, their interactions, their unguarded moments. It was a risky move, bordering on illegal, but I was past the point of caring about the law. They had broken it first. I justified it as evidence gathering, protecting myself against their inevitable denials. Each day felt like walking a tightrope. One wrong step could send me plummeting into the abyss. They were always watching me, scrutinizing my every move, searching for any sign of suspicion. I had to be careful, meticulous, patient. My sister Bethany remained a source of both comfort and frustration. She knew something was brewing, she could sense the change in me, but she didn't know the full extent of my plan. I couldn't tell her. The less she knew, the better, for her own protection. She questioned my motives, my methods. She accused me of becoming obsessed, of letting my anger consume me. She begged me to let it go, to forgive our parents, to move on with my life. I couldn't, not yet. The wound was still too fresh, the betrayal too deep. Besides, I knew that if I stopped, they would win. And I refused to let them win. One evening, while helping my mother with her computer, I installed a keystroke logger on her laptop. A small, undetectable program that recorded every keystroke, every password, every website she visited. It was a goldmine of information. I discovered their offshore accounts, their hidden investments, their secret correspondence with lawyers and financial advisors. I learned that the mortgage fraud was just one small piece of a much larger puzzle, a web of deceit that stretched back decades. They had been systematically defrauding investors, evading taxes, and laundering money through a network of shell corporations. The scale of their operation was breathtaking. The keystroke logger also revealed something far more disturbing. They were planning to leave the country. They had booked flights to a remote island in the Caribbean, a place with no extradition treaty with the United States. They were going to disappear, leaving me to take the fall for their crimes. My heart pounded in my chest. I had to act fast. I couldn't let them escape. I spent weeks meticulously gathering evidence, compiling a dossier of their fraudulent activities. I cross-referenced bank statements, emails, and video recordings, building an airtight case that would stand up in court. I consulted with a forensic accountant who helped me trace the flow of money through their complex network of accounts. I learned about asset forfeiture, money laundering statutes, and the legal procedures for seizing illicitly obtained funds. The more I learned, the more determined I became. I wouldn't just clear my name, I would bring them to justice. Even if it meant destroying our family in the process. As the date of their departure approached, the tension reached a fever pitch. I knew I was running out of time. I needed to execute my plan before they could disappear with all the money. I decided to confront them one last time, to give them one final chance to confess, to take responsibility for their actions. I invited them to my apartment for dinner, promising a reconciliation, a chance to put the past behind us. They accepted, cautiously optimistic, unaware of the trap I had set for them. I prepared a simple meal, meticulously arranging the table, creating an atmosphere of normalcy. But beneath the surface, I was a coiled spring, ready to unleash the fury that had been building inside me for months. The evening arrived. My parents arrived on time, dressed in their usual carefully curated attire. My mother wore a designer dress and expensive jewelry. My father sported a tailored suit and a smug grin. They looked every part the successful, affluent couple. The kind of people who thought they were above the law. I greeted them with a smile, ushering them inside, playing the role of the dutiful daughter. We made small talk, discussing the weather, their upcoming trip, anything to avoid the elephant in the room. But the silence was deafening, the tension palpable. After dinner, I led them into the living room, where I had set up a projector and screen. I told them I wanted to show them something, a home movie I had been working on. They settled into the chairs, curious but wary. I pressed play on the remote. The screen flickered to life, and then the truth began to unfold. video recordings of their secret meetings, bank statements showing their illicit transfers, emails detailing their fraudulent schemes. One by one, the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, exposing their lies, their deceit, their carefully constructed facade. As the evidence mounted, their faces drained of color, the smug grins vanished. The designer dress and tailored suit suddenly seemed less impressive, less convincing. They tried to interrupt, to deny, to deflect, but I wouldn't let them. I had waited too long for this moment. I had suffered too much. I would not be silenced. When the presentation was over, the room was silent. The only sound was the whirring of the projector fan. My parents sat frozen in their chairs, their eyes wide with fear and disbelief. How did you get this? My mother stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. I smiled. I've been recording everything, I said softly. Every lie, every betrayal, every crime. The truth hung in the air, thick and suffocating, a crimson stain on their perfect facade. This isn't real, my father finally sputtered, his face turning an unnatural shade of purple. This is all taken out of context. You're twisting things. He lunged forward, reaching for the laptop, but I was faster. I snatched it away, holding it just out of his reach. Context, I asked, my voice dangerously low. Let's talk about context. Let's talk about the context of forging my signature on a mortgage, the context of draining my bank account, the context of planning to abandon me and flee the country. My mother started to cry, her carefully applied makeup running down her face in black streaks. We did it for you, Genesis, she sobbed. Everything we did for you, you wouldn't understand. I laughed, a harsh, brittle sound that echoed through the apartment. For me, you almost broke me, you took everything from me. They tried to deny it, to justify it, to rewrite the narrative, but the evidence was overwhelming. The truth was undeniable. They were trapped. I pressed a button on my phone. The front door clicked shut, the deadbolt sliding into place. My parents jumped, their eyes darting around the room, searching for an escape. What was that? My father demanded, his voice trembling. Just a precaution, I replied, my smile widening. I wouldn't want you to leave before we finished our little chat. I pulled out another device from my pocket, a small remote control. And just to make sure things stay civil, I've disabled the phones, both yours and mine, no distractions. Panic flared in their eyes. They knew they were cornered. The hunter had become the hunted. Genesis, please, my mother begged, her voice cracking. Don't do this, we're your parents. I stared at them, my face devoid of emotion. You forfeited that right a long time ago. I activated the projector again. This time the screen displayed a live feed from the hidden cameras I had installed in their house. They watched in horror as images of their opulent lifestyle flashed across the screen, their expensive cars, their lavish vacations, their designer clothes. Nice house, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Shame if something were to happen to it. Then the feed switched to their offshore bank accounts, their hidden investments, their secret correspondence with their lawyers. I watched their faces as they saw their carefully constructed world crumble before their eyes. Their wealth, their status, their freedom, all hanging by a thread. You see, I said, my voice soft but firm, I've been very busy. I know everything, everything you've done, everything you've hidden. And I have proof, enough proof to send you both to prison for a very long time. My father's face contorted with rage. He stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. You wouldn't dare, he snarled. We're your family, you can't do this to us. I met his gaze, unflinching. Watch me. I held up my phone, displaying a pre-written email addressed to the FBI, the IRS, and several major news outlets. Attached were all the documents, videos, and recordings I had gathered over the past few months. All I have to do is press send, I said, my finger hovering over the button. And your little secret will be front-page news, your assets will be seized, and you'll be trading your designer clothes for orange jumpsuits. My mother started hyperventilating, clutching her chest. My father's face was a mask of fury. He took a step towards me, his fists clenched. You little. He began, but I cut him off. Try it, I challenged, my voice icy. Go ahead, touch me, see what happens. I knew he wouldn't. He was a coward. He had always been a coward, hiding behind his money, his power, his lies. He wouldn't risk assaulting me, not with all the evidence I had compiled. He knew he was beat, defeated. The game was over. He slumped back into his chair, his shoulders slumping in defeat. The fight had gone out of him. What do you want? He asked, his voice barely audible. I smiled, a genuine, triumphant smile. I want everything, I said. I want my money back, I want my life back, and I want you to confess. I want you to admit to everything you've done, publicly, unconditionally. I paused, letting my words sink in. And if you don't, I continued, my voice hardening, I will press send, and I will watch you both rot in jail. The silence stretched on, thick and heavy. My parents stared at me, their faces a mixture of fear, anger, and resentment. They knew I was serious. They knew I was capable of anything. They had pushed me too far. They had underestimated my resolve. They had created their own worst nightmare. Finally, my mother spoke, her voice barely a whisper. What do you want us to say? I leaned forward, my eyes gleaming with satisfaction. I'll tell you exactly what I want you to say. I grabbed a piece of paper and a pen from the coffee table and began to dictate. A confession. A detailed account of their crimes. Public apology. As they wrote, their faces contorted with shame and humiliation. But they wrote every word, they signed their names, and as they did, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. The scales had been balanced, justice had been served, but it wasn't over yet, not quite. There was one more thing I needed to do, one more score to settle. Now, I said after they had finished writing, it's time for your performance. I pointed to the hidden cameras. Smile, you're on candid camera. The camera light blinked red, a silent signal. My parents, defeated, read the confession aloud, their voices trembling with shame. Every carefully crafted lie, every deception, every betrayal laid bare for the world to see. Their voices cracked. Their eyes darted nervously, but they spoke the truth. The whole truth. The video ended. Silence filled the room once more, heavy and suffocating. I took the signed confession, folded it neatly, and placed it in my pocket. Good, I said, my voice cold and detached. Now get out. They didn't argue, they didn't plead. They simply stood up and walked towards the door, their heads bowed in defeat. As they reached the threshold, my mother turned back, her eyes filled with a mixture of hatred and despair. You'll regret this, Genesis, she hissed. You've destroyed your family. I just smiled. No, I replied softly. You destroyed our family, I'm just cleaning up the mess. The door clicked shut behind them. I was alone, but I was free. The next morning, I uploaded the video confession and the documents to the email, and I pressed send. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. News outlets picked up the story within minutes. The video went viral. Social media exploded with outrage and condemnation. My parents' names were trending worldwide. Their carefully constructed reputation, their wealth, their status, all crumbled to dust in an instant. The FBI and the IRS launched investigations. Their assets were frozen. Their bank accounts were seized. Their lavish lifestyle was exposed for the sham it was. My sister Bethany called me, her voice filled with shock and disbelief. She had seen the video. She had read the news reports. She couldn't believe that our parents were capable of such deception. She was angry, hurt, confused. I explained everything, telling her about the forged loans, the stolen money, the planned escape. She listened in silence, her sobs gradually subsiding as she understood the full extent of their betrayal. In the end, she thanked me. She thanked me for exposing the truth. She thanked me for protecting her. My parents tried to reach out to me to apologize, to explain. But I refused to speak to them. I had nothing left to say. They had forfeited their right to be my parents. They were just names now, faces on a screen, symbols of a past I was determined to leave behind. They lost everything. Their freedom, their reputation, their wealth, their family. They faced criminal charges. The trial was a media circus. Every detail of their fraudulent activities was dissected and analyzed. They were found guilty on all counts. They were sentenced to prison for a very long time. I watched the news reports, my face devoid of emotion. I felt nothing. No joy, no satisfaction, no relief, just emptiness. The crimson stain had been cleansed, but the scars remained. I had achieved my revenge. I had cleared my name. I had reclaimed my life, but the victory felt hollow. The price had been too high. I moved away, changed my name, and started a new life. I never spoke to my parents again. I tried to rebuild my relationship with Bethany, but it was never quite the same. The bond had been broken, the trust shattered. The wounds ran too deep. Years later, I sometimes think about my parents, about what drove them to do what they did. Was it greed, power, fear? I'll never know. And perhaps I don't want to know. Some wounds never fully heal. Some betrayals can never be forgiven. Some families are simply beyond repair. The experience changed me. It hardened me. It taught me the importance of self-reliance, the fragility of trust, and the enduring power of justice. Revenge isn't sweet. It's necessary. It's a shield against the darkness, a defense against those who would seek to exploit and harm you. It's a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, you have the power to fight back, to reclaim what is rightfully yours, to protect yourself and those you love. Would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more justice.